A 15-year-old boy, rushing to class, spotted a crying toddler locked in a car under the scorching sun. Without hesitation, he smashed the window. What happened next left onlookers stunned. The morning in the city was swelteringly unbearable, the urban sprawl suffocating under the summer heat. The streets seemed to move in slow motion, but for 15-year-old Peter, there wasn't a second to spare. He sprinted down uneven sidewalks, his backpack swinging wildly behind him, nearly knocking over a trash can. He narrowly avoided crashing into a newsstand, his mind racing to come up with excuses for his history teacher, Mr. Thompson. But deep down, he knew no explanation would cut it. Mr. Thompson was a stickler for punctuality, and 3 tardies in a row meant a week of after-school detention. Peter's lungs burned, his sneakers slapped loudly against the pavement, and sweat dripped down his forehead. "Come on, Pete, just a few more blocks," he muttered to himself. The world blurred around him, familiar shops and faces fading into a hazy backdrop. His only focus was getting to school on time. But then a faint sound caught his ear. Peter slowed, turning toward a nearly empty parking lot near a corner store. The noise grew louder as he approached an old car baking under the morning sun, its surface glinting harshly. He froze. Inside, on the back seat, was a toddler strapped into a car seat. The child's face was flushed red, glistening with sweat, his tiny hands weakly pressing against the window, letting out soft, broken cries. Peter's stomach twisted. "Hey," he shouted, scanning the lot. "Whose car is this?" His voice echoed off nearby buildings, but no one answered. He rushed to the car and yanked the door handle. Locked. He tried every door, his heart pounding as the toddler's cries grew weaker. The heat was suffocating even outside. Peter couldn't imagine what the child was enduring inside. The toddler's head tilted slightly, his tiny chest heaving with labored breaths. A terrifying thought hit Peter. This kid might not have much time. "Hold on, little guy," Peter said, his voice trembling. He scanned the area for anything that could help. His eyes landed on a large rock at the edge of the sidewalk. Without a second thought, he grabbed it. "Sorry about this," he whispered, raising the rock overhead. With a forceful swing, he smashed the rear window. Glass shattered with a loud crash, shards scattering across the seat and ground. A wave of hot air hit Peter as he reached through the broken window to unlock the door. He carefully unbuckled the toddler's car seat straps and lifted the child into his arms. The boy felt alarmingly warm, his body limp. Peter held him close, his heart racing. "You're going to be okay," he whispered, unsure if he was reassuring the toddler or himself. The child's frail frame and faint breathing only deepened Peter's fear. He stepped back from the car, looking around for help, but the lot was deserted. The nearest clinic was 3 blocks away, a route Peter walked daily to and from school. Cradling the toddler tightly, he ran. His legs felt heavy, the heat pressing down like a physical weight, but he didn't dare slow down. The toddler let out a faint whimper, his cries now barely audible. "Hang in there," Peter gasped, his voice shaking with desperation. The city streets blurred past. A flower shop, a coffee joint, the newsstand he'd nearly crashed into earlier. People turned to stare, some shouting, but Peter didn't stop. His focus was locked on the clinic, a beacon of hope at the end of the street. When the clinic's white facade came into view, a surge of energy pushed him forward. Ignoring the burning in his lungs, he forced his legs to move faster. The glass doors loomed closer, yet felt impossibly far. "We're almost there," he muttered, though doubt gnawed at him as the toddler's breathing grew shallower. Bursting into the clinic, his sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. "Help! Somebody, please!" he shouted, his voice cracking with panic. The small waiting room, filled with patients flipping through outdated magazines, turned to look at him in unison. Behind the reception desk, A nurse froze, her hand hovering over a file. Her eyes widened when she saw Peter clutching the limp toddler. Peter stumbled to the desk, gasping. "I found this kid in a car. It was so hot, I don't know if he's breathing. Please help." The nurse's professionalism kicked in like a reflex. "Get Dr. Andrews now," she barked to an assistant, who bolted toward the double doors leading to the emergency wing. The nurse rounded the desk, her hands steady but her expression tense. "Where are his parents?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I don't know," Peter panted, struggling to keep his composure. "He was alone in the car, under the sun. He was barely breathing. I couldn't just leave him." "Give me the child," she said firmly but gently. Peter hesitated. He'd held the toddler so protectively that letting go felt wrong, but the nurse's calm authority reassured him. With trembling hands, he handed over the child. She took the toddler carefully and hurried toward the emergency doors, leaving Peter standing in the middle of the waiting room. His knees buckled, and he fought to catch his breath. "What happened?" an elderly woman asked the man next to her. "Is the baby okay?" A young boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. But Peter heard none of it. All he could feel was the echo of the toddler's faint cries, now faded to silence, though he wasn't sure if they'd stopped entirely. Minutes dragged like hours as Peter stood frozen, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead the only sound in the stifling quiet. His hands still tingled, as if searching for an answer to the question haunting him. Had he done enough? A soft voice snapped him back to reality. "You okay, kid?" Peter looked up to see a woman in scrubs, her badge reading Dr. Olivia Andrews. Her eyes held the warmth and experience of someone who'd seen many crises. "I don't know," Peter mumbled, his voice breaking. "I just acted on instinct." Dr. Andrews nodded, her face a mix of concern and reassurance. "You did the right thing," she said. "You got him here, and that's what matters most. But is he going to be okay?" Peter's voice was barely audible. Dr. Andrews' expression softened, but she didn't give the definitive answer he craved. "We're doing everything we can. He's in good hands now." Peter's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto one of the plastic chairs lining the wall. The adrenaline that had fueled him was gone, leaving exhaustion and a faint dizziness. He leaned forward, replaying the events in his mind. The toddler's cries, the stifling heat inside the car, the fragile weight of the child in his arms. For the first time since the ordeal began, he let himself feel the full weight of fear and horror. Quick footsteps made him look up. The nurse returned, her face showing the fatigue of someone working under pressure. She walked straight to him. "The baby's going to be okay," she said, her voice warm but cautious. "It was close, but you got him here in time. That made all the difference." Peter exhaled, his body relaxing as if a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying had lifted. Relief flooded him, but new questions surged. "Is he really okay? Did you find his parents?" The nurse raised a hand to gently stop him. "He's still weak and needs monitoring, but there's no immediate danger. We've called the police. They'll be here soon and will want to talk to you." "Police?" Peter blinked. He hadn't considered having to explain himself. His focus had been solely on saving the toddler. "Yes," the nurse nodded. "We need to figure out how this happened and where the parents are." Peter nodded slowly, the gravity of the situation sinking in. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling as a wave of emotions. Relief, worry, and helplessness washed over him. Somewhere beyond those double doors, the toddler he'd saved was fighting to recover, and Peter knew he'd carry the weight of that responsibility forever. The antiseptic smell of the clinic filled the air as Peter sat motionless, his thoughts spiraling. He glanced at his hands, as if they might hold answers. The emergency doors swung open, and a tall woman in a white coat entered, her eyes immediately finding Peter. Her badge read Dr. Olivia Andrews. "You're the one who brought the baby in?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Peter jumped up, his chair scraping the tiles. "Yes, ma'am. Is he okay?" Dr. Andrews approached with measured confidence, radiating calm. "You're a brave kid," she said. The baby's temperature was dangerously high. He was severely dehydrated. 10 more minutes, and we could have lost him. But you acted fast. You saved his life. Peter's throat tightened, tears stinging his eyes. Hearing it felt like a punch. He didn't feel like a hero. He'd just done what seemed necessary. "I didn't know what else to do," he mumbled. "I couldn't leave him there." Dr. Andrews noticed the scratches on his hands from the broken glass. "It took courage to act in that moment," she said. "Most people would have frozen." She studied him. "How are you holding up?" Peter opened his mouth to reply, but found no words. How'd he feel? He wasn't sure. The adrenaline had faded, leaving a tangle of emotions he couldn't unravel. Dr. Andrews gestured to a small break room off the waiting area. "Let's step in here," she suggested. "You probably need a drink." The break room was simple and quiet. A small table, a few chairs, and a softly humming coffee machine. Dr. Andrews handed Peter a bottle of water and sat across from him. He took greedy gulps as she spoke. "The police will be here soon to talk to you. Don't worry. They just need to understand what happened. You'll help them piece it together." Peter nodded, but the thought of speaking with police made his stomach churn. "I just don't get it," he said finally. "How do you forget a kid? It doesn't make sense." Dr. Andrews' face grew serious. "It happens more often than you'd think. Sometimes it's a mistake, sometimes neglect." Her voice trailed off, hinting at stories she couldn't share. Peter clenched his fists, struggling to comprehend how anyone could forget child. The image of the toddler's red, helpless face lingered. Noticing his tension, Dr. Andrews continued gently. "You did everything you could. Because of you, that baby has a chance." Before Peter could respond, a knock came at the door. A police officer in uniform stood there, holding a notepad. He looked professional, but not stern. "Is this him?" he asked Dr. Andrews. "Yes, he brought the baby in," she confirmed. The officer stepped inside and looked at Peter. "I'm Officer Greg Sullivan. I need to ask you a few questions about what happened. You ready?" Peter shifted nervously, but nodded. "Yes, sure." Sullivan pulled up a chair and opened his notepad. "First, let's get some basics. Your name?" "Peter Gollivan," he replied, trying to sound steady. "How old are you?" 15. "Where do you go to school?" "West Side High," Peter added. Sullivan jotted notes, then asked, "You live near where this happened?" "Yeah, about 10 minutes away." At that moment, the nurse returned. "I reached the boy's mother," she said. "She's on her way." "Good. Thank you." Sullivan nodded, then turned back to Peter. "Now, walk me through what happened." Peter recounted everything as clearly as he could. The faint cries, the locked car, the unbearable heat, smashing the window, and carrying the toddler to the clinic. His voice wavered as he described the child's shallow breathing. Sullivan listened intently, occasionally making notes. "You said no one else was in the parking lot," he clarified. Peter nodded. "I looked around, called out, but no one came." Sullivan closed his notepad. "Thank you, Peter. What you did was brave. Smashing a window was risky, but you likely saved a life. That's not something you see every day." Peter shrugged, unsure how to handle the praise. "I just couldn't leave him there," he mumbled. Dr. Andrews, who'd been standing by the wall, stepped forward and placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. "I think that's enough for now," she told the officer. "Peter's been through a lot." Sullivan stood. "Of course. Thank you, kid. We'll contact your parents if we need more." As the officer left, Dr. Andrews sat across from Peter again. "You're handling this better than most adults would," she said warmly. "But if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's okay. What you did was a lot." Peter looked at his still trembling hands. "What happens next? To the kid, I mean." Dr. Andrews folded her hands. He'll stay here until we're sure he's fully recovered. After that, it's up to the police. If they find the parents, they'll have questions to answer. If not, she paused, there may be involvement from Child Protective Services. Protective Services? Peter echoed, the term unfamiliar. Dr. Andrews nodded. If the parents can't be found or aren't fit to care for him, the child might go to a foster family. It's a tough process, but the system's there to keep kids safe. Peter's heart ached at the thought of the toddler, so small and vulnerable, with strangers. Do you think they just forgot him? He asked, barely believing his own words. Dr. Andrews sighed heavily. It's possible. People make mistakes, even terrible ones. But it could also be more serious. The investigation will figure that out. Peter leaned back, feeling the weight of the day. He'd acted on instinct, but now the consequences felt heavier than he'd imagined. Sensing his turmoil, Dr. Andrews placed a hand over his. You did the right thing, Peter. Hold on to that. Before he could respond, the nurse peeked in. Doctor, she said calmly, the baby's stable. His vitals are improving. Dr. Andrews' shoulders visibly relaxed. Thank you, she said, standing. Peter watched her leave, a warmth of relief easing the cold knot of fear in his chest. The toddler was safe for now. Hours later, the police returned, their presence stirring whispers among staff and visitors. Peter stayed in the break room, too tense to step outside. He sat with his head in his hands, reliving the day's wait. When the door opened, he expected another officer, but instead, his mother rushed in, her face a mix of fear and relief. Peter, she cried, pulling him into a tight hug, her hands trembling. I don't understand. They said you smashed a car window? Are you okay? Do you realize what could have happened? Peter opened his mouth to explain, but Officer Sullivan stepped in. Ma'am, please, he said calmly. Your son didn't do anything wrong. He saved a baby's life, locked in a car in this heat. His mother froze, her eyes widening. A baby, she repeated. Sullivan nodded, explaining how Peter found the child, acted quickly, and got him to the clinic. The baby's stable now, thanks to your son's courage, he added. But it was an emergency, and we'll need to discuss details. His mother closed her eyes, processing the story. She hugged Peter tighter. Peter, you really saved a kid? Yeah, Mom, he said quietly. He could have died if I didn't break the window. She ran a hand through his hair, her voice shaky. God, I was so scared you were in trouble. Another officer entered, his face showing slight relief. We found the baby's parents, he announced. They're here now. Sullivan nodded. Good. We'll talk to them and get the full story. Peter's mother, still holding him, looked at the officer. So, my son's not in trouble. Not at all, Sullivan assured her. His actions saved a life. She exhaled, sitting beside Peter and gripping his hand. Peter straightened. The parents are here. What did they say? Dr. Andrews sat across from him. The father arrived after the police tracked him through the car's registration. He's devastated. Says he thought the mother took the baby when they got to the store. Peter's stomach twisted again. Forgot? How do you forget your own kid? Dr. Andrews sighed. People underestimate how dangerous distractions, stress, or routine can be. The police are talking to both parents to determine if it was a mistake or something more serious. Before Peter could respond, Sullivan returned. Peter, the parents want to speak with you, if you're up for it. Peter hesitated. The thought of facing the people who'd put the toddler in danger stirred anger and unease. But after a moment, he nodded. Okay. Sullivan led him to a small consultation room. Inside, a man sat with his head in his hands, and a woman stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself. The tension was palpable. When Peter entered, the man looked up, his eyes red and his face etched with guilt. You're the kid who saved my son? He asked, his voice trembling. Peter froze, unsure what to say. The woman turned from the window, her face streaked with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I can't even." Her voice broke, and she covered her face. The man stood, his movements unsteady. "You gave us a second chance," he said, his words choking. "If it wasn't for you." Peter's bottled-up anger spilled out. "How could you leave him in the car?" He snapped, louder than intended. "Do you know how close it was? Your son almost—" He couldn't finish. The man flinched, his guilt plain. "I thought my wife took him," he whispered. "I swear I thought—" "You thought wrong," Peter shot back, his voice shaking. Dr. Andrews, who'd quietly entered, stepped forward and placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. "Peter," she said softly, "I understand your anger. This family will live with this day forever. They made a terrible mistake, but punishing them isn't our job." The room fell into an uneasy silence. The man sank back into his chair, shoulders slumped. The woman continued to sob quietly. Peter looked at them, his emotions a tangle of frustration, pity, and fear for the toddler. Dr. Andrews turned to the parents. "Your son is stable," she said firmly but kindly. "But this will have legal and emotional consequences. The police and child services will work with you." The parents nodded, their movements heavy with remorse and gratitude. As the officer led Peter back to the hallway, the man's voice called after them. "Thank you," he said, trembling. "You'll never know what this means to us." Peter didn't respond, walking down the corridor with heavy steps, drained from the day. Dr. Andrews caught up with him at the clinic's exit. "Peter," she said, her voice warm but firm, "I know this was tough, but you need to understand, what you did today showed incredible courage and compassion. It matters, not just for that baby, but for everyone who saw you act selflessly." Peter looked down at his sneakers, unsure how to respond. Her words felt too big to grasp, but deep down, he knew they were true. As he stepped outside with his mother, the setting sun bathed the city in golden light. Peter took a deep breath of the warm evening air, tinged with the promise of cooler night. He glanced at the horizon, the day's events replaying in his mind. For the first time, he let himself feel a spark of hope. The toddler was safe. The parents had a chance to make things right. And Peter, perhaps, had discovered something within himself he hadn't known was there. In the days that followed, Peter couldn't stop thinking about what happened. His life in the city returned to its usual rhythm. But for him, everything had changed. In class, his thoughts drifted to the toddler he'd saved. The image of the child's flushed, fragile, yet living face vivid in his mind. He soon learned the parents had been fined for child endangerment and placed on probation, required to attend parenting classes and regular check-ins with social services. The news left Peter conflicted. He understood the need to protect the child, but part of him still burned with anger and disappointment at their carelessness. Yet he couldn't shake the hope that the toddler was now safer, and he believed the incident might make the parents more vigilant. Word of Peter's actions spread quickly through school and the neighborhood. Classmates whispered about him in the halls, and neighbors stopped him on the street to praise him. But the attention overwhelmed him. "I didn't do anything special," he grumbled when complimented. Deep down, though, he knew that wasn't entirely true. One day, sitting at the back of history class, Peter felt his phone buzz. He discreetly checked it and saw a message from Dr. Andrews. "Hi, Peter. I've been thinking about what happened and how you handled it. Would you consider visiting the clinic again? I think it could be good for you." Peter stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. He remembered Dr. Andrews' kind, steady gaze and her calm voice that had grounded him that chaotic day. Finally, he typed a short reply. "Okay. When? When Peter returned to the clinic, this time as a guest rather than a hero, Dr. Andrews greeted him at the entrance with her familiar warm smile. "Thanks for coming back," she said, leading him down the now familiar corridor. I thought you might like to see another side of this place, one people don't always notice. She brought him to a storage room filled with medical supplies, shelves stacked with bandages, gloves, syringes, and neatly labeled medications. This is where it all starts, she said, handing him a pair of gloves. Today, you can help us organize a bit. Peter hesitated. I don't know anything about this, he admitted. Dr. Andrews smiled. You don't need to. All it takes is a willingness to help and learn what we do here. Peter began sorting boxes under her guidance. As they worked, she shared stories about the clinic, its long shifts, tough cases, and small victories that made it all worthwhile. What you did for that baby reminded me why I chose this career, she said, stacking a box of gloves. It's easy to lose sight of that amid paperwork and protocols, but every life we touch matters. Peter listened, a growing respect for her work taking root. He recalled that day, how fear and desperation had driven him to act. He hadn't felt brave then, just determined to help. When they finished in the storage room, Dr. Andrews suggested he visit one of the pediatric wards. There, a 5-year-old boy named Mikey sat on an exam table, nervously swinging his legs, his mother looking worried beside him. This is Mikey, Dr. Andrews said with a smile. He's here for a checkup, but is a bit anxious. Peter, could you stay with him while I review his chart? Surprised but nodding, Peter agreed. Mikey looked at him with wide eyes. Are you a doctor? Peter laughed. Nope, just here to help. Mikey relaxed slightly and grinned. Doctors are scary. You're not. Peter made a funny face to make Mikey laugh and started asking about his favorite toys and video games. The boy perked up, eagerly sharing a story about his dog. When Dr. Andrews returned, Mikey looked at ease. You've got a gift, she remarked later as they walked the corridor. Connecting with people like that, it's not something you can teach. Her words lingered with Peter, sparking a new thought. Could he have a place in a world where he helped others? Back in the main hallway, Dr. Andrews paused, her expression serious. Have you ever thought about what you want to do in the future? She asked. The question caught Peter off guard. I don't know, he admitted. I haven't really thought about it. She smiled. That's okay. But after what I saw today, I think you've got the potential to do something great. Maybe not as a doctor, but somewhere you can make a difference. Her words were encouraging but daunting. That night, at the kitchen table with his history textbooks, Peter realized something in him had shifted. The future no longer felt like a vague fear, but a challenge he was ready to meet. He didn't know how yet, but he wanted to do something meaningful. Soon, with Dr. Andrews' encouragement, Peter signed up to volunteer at the clinic on weekends and during school breaks. On his first day as an official volunteer, his badge reading volunteer, his heart raced with a mix of nerves and excitement. Dr. Andrews greeted him with her warm smile. Welcome back, Peter. Let's get started. The day was busy, sorting files, watching nurses prep equipment, and handling small tasks. Some work felt mundane, but the clinic's purpose and atmosphere captivated him. At lunch, Dr. Andrews approached with a sly smile. Someone wants to see you, she said, leading him to a small room. Peter froze as he entered. There sat the toddler's parents, the father holding the now healthy baby, his eyes bright and a mischievous smile on his face. Peter, the father began, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to thank you. You saved our son. Because of you, we still have a family. The mother stepped forward, holding a small, blue-wrapped box. This is for you, she said softly. It's not much, but we wanted you to have something to remember what you did. Peter took the gift, cheeks flushing. You didn't have to, he mumbled. I just did what anyone would. The mother's eyes filled with tears. You're wrong, she said. Not everyone would have done what you did. You didn't hesitate when it mattered. Peter opened the box to find a small framed photo of the toddler, smiling and healthy, with an inscription, "Asterisk, you gave us hope." "Thank you." Asterisk, he stared at it, then at the parents and the giggling child reaching for him. After they left, Peter sat with Dr. Andrews in a quiet corridor, still holding the frame. "I didn't expect this," he admitted, gazing at the baby's joyful face. Dr. Andrews leaned back, thoughtful. "These are the moments that remind us why we do this," she said. "It's not always easy or immediately rewarding, but seeing the impact you have makes it worth it." Peter nodded, her words resonating deeply. He thought back to that day, and a sense of purpose filled him. From then on, he volunteered weekly, each shift teaching him something new. He grew to understand the value of even small contributions. Nurses and doctors noticed his dedication and his knack for connecting with patients, especially kids, making even the most frightened smile. With each day, Peter's vision of his future sharpened. The idea of becoming a doctor, once a faint spark, grew into a steady flame. "You're changing," Dr. Andrews noted during one of their talks. "You're more focused." Peter paused, then admitted, "I think I finally know what I want to do. I want to help people, maybe even be a doctor like you." Her smile radiated pride, but she added a gentle warning. "That's a wonderful goal, but it's a tough road. Medical school is years of hard work, and a doctor's life isn't always easy. It's a commitment that shapes everything." Peter nodded, his eyes gleaming with resolve. "I know, but after what happened, I can't imagine doing anything else." Dr. Andrews, moved by his determination, enrolled him in a local mentorship program for high schoolers interested in medicine. It marked a new chapter for Peter. He shadowed doctors on rounds, observed their work, and learned the importance of every detail in patient care. These experiences solidified his path. Still, he knew challenges lay ahead. Medical school seemed like a towering mountain, with late nights, financial hurdles, and self-doubt to overcome. One evening, studying a college guide at the kitchen table, his eyes lingered on medical programs. The thought of years of grueling work was daunting, but the memory of the toddler's face and the parents' gratitude fueled his resolve. Peter didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing. This was the path he was meant to follow. Thank you for listening to the story until the end. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends and loved ones. It motivates us to keep working on new stories every day. Don't miss the next amazing story that's about to appear on your screen. We're very grateful to have you with us. See you soon.